Hello, and welcome to episode number 171 of the Board Game Barrage podcast. I am your host, Christina the Blue Tank, and with me, as always, I have Mark the Green Tank.
Hey!
Neil in the Orange Tank.
Hello.
And Kellen the Red Tank.
Who would you say is with you the most?
Kellen,
though?
you literally made this joke before.
God damn it. Cut it. Cut it. No.
Okay.
Hello, Christina. Good to hear your voice.
Perfect. Thank you, Kellen. And thank you to the other two as well.
You're welcome.
For saying hello. Today, we have a lot to cover because we are not just going into one topic. Today, we are bringing you a variety of topics. None of them were big enough to make it to full episode status. But I will say, one of these topics, you'll get to hear something you've never heard before on the Board Game Barrage podcast. So stay tuned for that. Before we talk about all of those things, and before we tell you about some of the games we've been playing, I think there's a public service announcement.
It is that time of the year, friends of the show, listeners of the show. It is the Golden Geek Awards, where you can vote for Board Game Barrage for the best board game podcast. Thanks to everyone who nominated us to get us into this second round of the competition. Now it is the time to really action, to really vote, to get us placed. We have made it this far before, but have never placed first, second, or third in the final results. It really is something that you can do to help the show. You can do that at boardgamebarrage.com/vote. The hardest thing about making a board game podcast is spreading the word. And the Golden Geek competition really is one of those ways you can literally help us. And it would mean so much to us. It would mean so much to me. I can't speak for these friends.
Yeah, I don't really care.
Yeah, not fast.
Yeah. If you don't have a Board Game Geek account, we can help you with that on the Discord. You can email us at boardgamebarrage@gmail.com. But again, that link is boardgamebarrage.com/vote. We would greatly appreciate any help that you could throw our way.
And to show you how important this is to us, Neelan has composed a song that he'd like to share right now.
Vote. Life is peaceful there.
Vote.
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 Out in the open air.
Vote.
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 It's what
Vote.
you're gonna do. Go vote.
Vote.
For a board game
Board
podcast or two.
Well, just one.
Just us.
Thank you, Neelan.
Yeah, you're
and he also, if we win, he will actually
second
has
verse.
agreed to release that as a cover on
A
iTunes.
single.
And Mark has agreed to let all of you play one-on-one Biblios with him, and he'll let you win. So that's like a lot of
Half of that
hours
is
of
true.
his life.
Half of that is very true.
Half of that is true?
Yeah, I'll let them play Biblios with me one-on-one. I don't let anybody
You're going to let
beat me.
every single listener play Biblios with you if you
Yeah,
win?
absolutely. If we win,
Okay.
anybody at any time can tell me to play Biblios with them at a
And
convention.
you'll drop everything you're doing and play.
Absolutely.
Drop and
All
give
right.
me Biblios.
I like it.
That promise is only binding to this Golden Geek Award, though.
Okay.
Not to
Let it be known.
And don't take our word for it, because it was none other than Tom Brewster himself of Shut Up and Sit Down, who, on their own online convention this weekend, called us the greatest podcast out there, even surpassing Shut Up and Sit Down, which is an interesting take to make in front of your employer, but hey.
And speaking of that, thank you, obviously, for the kind words. Shut up and sit down, everyone. But also, thank you to all of you for having us. That was a ton of fun. I know Mark and I had a lot of fun. I don't know about Neelan and Kellen.
No, we definitely did. It was a great weekend, genuinely. And I think that if you missed it for whatever reason, like you can go catch the reruns of it on their Twitch accounts. Yeah, it was fun to take part in. It was a great privilege and a pleasure to just be joining them for the weekend.
It was absolutely phenomenal. Like, it's such a well done online convention. I would never in a million years think I would be like interested in online conventions. And obviously, you know, we took part in it, so that's a big reason, but it's just such a good vibe. And like the Twitch and reading the comments on Twitch was just so cool. It was just so awesome. I really like it.
Neelan and I were set to play just one, and I was excited because I could help rehabilitate my image as a cooperative, kind member of the team. And then at the 11th hour, we got asked to play Wits and Wagers against Mick and Starlove, Our Family Plays Games, against Jonathan Ying, a board game designer, against Danny Plays Games. And I try-harded the out of that game. I did win, but I don't think I rehabilitated my image.
So yeah, AwSHUX was amazing. And like Mark said, you can check out the replays or, next time, come join us, hopefully. Next, we're going to talk about the games we played. Neelan's going to start us out with Jekyll versus Hyde. Kellen and I will talk about Seikatsu. And Mark will bring us on home with Merv. So Neelan, tell us about Jekyll versus Hyde.
So Jekyll vs. Hyde is a very recent 2021 release by Mandu Games. And this is a 2-player competitive trick-taking game, which is, I still think, to my knowledge at least, fairly unusual. And especially the way that this plays with the genre is pretty novel, I thought. So trick-taking games are typically with a close to standard deck of cards. In the case of Jekyll vs. Hyde, there are 3 suits with cards numbered 1 through 7. And in a trick-taking game, you are typically playing a card to which other people have to react, and then one person wins that trick. And there is some sort of goal, depending on the game, which determines how many tricks you want to win, or which tricks you want to win, and so on. In the case of Jekyll vs. Hyde, what that specific goal is going to depend on whether you're playing as Jekyll or Hyde. So it's an asymmetric trick-taking game.
But aren't they the same person, Neelan?
They are the same person, Kellen, but they're battling inside the mind for control. And the way that that manifests is Dr. Jekyll wants balance. He wants to win as many tricks as Mr. Hyde does. He can't let his mind go too far astray. So at the end of any given hand, you'll be playing 10 tricks. And what Dr. Jekyll wants to do is for there to be as much balance between the two players. You want to ideally win 5 and have Mr. Hyde win 5. Because the difference between how many tricks either of you wins, whether it's in your favor or in Mr. Hyde's favor, is going to be how far this marker moves along the track, sort of indicating Dr. Jekyll's mind being taken over by Mr. Hyde. So what that means, conversely, is Mr. Hyde wants to either dominate and win a lot of tricks or lose a lot of tricks, because that difference, again, is how far the marker works. You do that for 3 hands, 3 rounds, and if the marker's made it all the way to the end, then Mr. Hyde has won the game. Otherwise, Dr. Jekyll wins. One of the ways that the rules recommend you play is to sort of play it twice, swapping roles, and then whoever gets further along the track or does it in less time is the person who wins. But that's the basic gist of it. The trick-taking itself has a couple of interesting little quirks in it. The way that suit precedence works is based on the order that the cards come out. So if the green suit comes out first, and that's the weakest one, followed by whichever one comes out second, and then whichever suit is played last is the highest. So there is some sort of play around when you want to play a specific color. And also each of these colors is tied to a specific power when one of the player responds to that color with a potion card. So this is the only type of card I haven't spoken about. There's about 5 of them, I think, in the game. And if you, say, react to, like, the green card with a potion, then you swap cards. They pick 2 cards to give you, and you pick 2 cards to give them. If you respond to a red card with a potion, then the power precedence tokens go away and the power of the suits reset. And if you respond to a purple card with a potion, the winning player gets to steal a trick from the other player. So there are a couple of those little powers and quirks that kind of can swing the game in either way. I kind of found that dynamic interesting, where the players have competing goals, kind of unusual. Now, I wanted to get a more experienced trick taker's take on this, so I was quite keen to get Kellen to try a game with this with me. So Kellen, what do you think of Jekyll vs. Hyde?
First of all, thank you for recognizing me as a more experienced gamer than you.
That is not what I said.
Well, that's what I heard. So, first of all, I think that the fun of this is really easy to say. Someone sat there and said, and I don't know who that someone is, the designer, said, wouldn't it be cool if you didn't know if your opponent was trying to bomb this game or win all the tricks? And, wouldn't it be cool if it was sort of that invariable tension between which way are they going to go and I don't know what's happening? I had, and Neelan knows, he set me up here to answer the question, but I think within 2 minutes of the game starting, I said, I don't like this, Neelan. I don't like this, Neelan. Please. Oh my God, I don't like this. I started the game as the Dr. Jekyll character, and the Dr. Jekyll character role acts as sort of this pressure valve. Like, the only role of Dr. Jekyll is to keep Hyde in check. Okay? You are not making grand strategies so much as you are responding to what the other person is doing. And I did not like that feeling. I did not like the feeling of getting a new hand in a trick taker and going, well, this is a pretty balanced hand. Which card should I give the other player? And then halfway through, kind of having to reevaluate again and not really feeling like there was a ton of strategy beyond keeping that in balance. Okay, I want to win, now I want to lose, now I want to win, now I want to lose. I could keep going. Now I want to win, now I want to lose. But the big but is that once I switched and played the Hyde character, I was like, oh, this is way more fun. Like, way, 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 way more fun. Because it's like, I'm going to win one. I'm going to win one. Haha, Nealon's an idiot. He thinks I'm going to win. And then I try to tank the rest of the tricks. And you start with that plan, and then you execute it. And lo and behold, that led to, me destroying Nealon in the second round, where I think I got 8 or 9 steps out of like 10 or 12 in one hand. And that was really fun to sort of set that up. I think there's a lot here that's clever, a lot here that's interesting. I'm not sure the potion cards are balanced. It's sort of like, how much can you plan when one of the potions is swap 2 cards with the next player? I think what they're doing with trick-taking right now is really fun. I think we're in a little bit of a renaissance where everyone's like, oh yeah, we like trick-taking games. Let's do weird stuff with it. I know you have played Fox in the Forest,
yeah,
another 2-player trick-taking game that I have not. So I would love to hear how you feel like those compare.
Yeah, it's interesting because that is kind of my most recent, point of comparison for this. And I think for what it's worth, I liked Jekyll versus Hyde. I liked it a lot more than you, certainly. Like, trick-taking games are not my favorite genre to begin with. But this really did strike me as, to my mind at least, more interesting than Fox in the Forest did. And I think that they play in similar ballparks, which is to say that I don't think you would like Fox in the Forest either, because it's about power manipulation. To caveat that, I think that there are problems with when you get got by a potion in Jekyll vs. Hyde and like you are doing great on the tricks and then you just have one stolen from you. That doesn't feel great. But accounting for the possibility of that and thinking like, okay, I'm going to make sure I don't lead him the opening to like respond to a purple card with the appropriate trick, feels like part of it that would become more apparent after like subsequent plays. Like, if you know that those 3 powers are there is some sort of process that is accounting for them, I would think. But I don't know. I also liked the Jekyll character, not necessarily more, but I found it kind of fun to play as, because that consideration at the beginning is about leaving yourselves opening to both be able to like win or lose a trick and then pivot around that.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting as a game design because the only thing that you can do as Dr. Jekyll is lose, right? It's not like a marker starts at the middle and then each round it's sort of pushing and pulling towards one thing. Each round as Dr. Jekyll, all you can do is get closer to losing the game. And so that position doesn't feel as good to me, even though I do agree you would get better at it. You would figure out what heuristics to use. A lot of the normal, traditional trick-taking heuristics that I would use, I did not know how to employ in this as Dr. Jekyll, because I'm looking at my hand as like, okay, I have a really strong hand. Does that mean that he has a really weak hand? If he has a really weak hand, does that mean he's going to try to lose? Ergo, should I give him my good card? Should I try to get rid of a full suit of colors? A lot of the normal heuristics I couldn't do. And you might say, well, Callan, that means it's a new game. There's new things that you could learn. But a trick-taking game can be too chaotic. It's that balance between, is this just random or how much control do I have over what's going on? Mm-hmm. I enjoyed the game. I would play it with you again, despite my grumbles by minute number 4.
When you say minute 4, you mean minute 20, which is to say that when you talk about Seikatsu, let's pick it up.
What?
I mean, the very last thing I will say is that the art in this is gorgeous. It's Vincent Dutray. Looks great. It's solid production. You can play it in Board Game Arena. And that is Jekyll versus Hyde.
Thank you, Nealon and Kellen. And now, Kellen, will you tell us about Seikatsu?
Seikatsu is an IDW abstract strategy game that is one of the prettiest board games I think I have ever seen. It is a bird game, so that might be helpful for us come Thanksgiving. In Seikatsu, it is a 2 or 3 player game where you are placing tiles onto a board, and each tile is one of 4 bird types and one of 4 flower types. So you could have the same blue bird, but it'll have 4 different wreaths of flowers around it. So it has sort of 2 elements that make up a tile. Turns in this game are lightning quick. The game is over in 20 to 25 minutes. You have 2 tiles. You place a tile adjacent to another tile already on the board, and then you draw another tile. You will be scoring during the game for every similar bird that you touch. So you can score up to, I guess, 6 points if you place a tile and it's surrounded by all the other birds of that type, okay? That is the dinking and dunking that you're going to be doing during the game of Seikatsu. And then, at the end of the game, you're going to be scoring flowers. So the birds that you place, they don't matter anymore. And you're going to be looking at your pagoda. So each player sits in a specific place. So the blue player is in one place, the pink player is in another place, and you'll be looking at the columns that go outward from your pagoda. So Christina and I have these sort of crosshatch effect where I am trying to get enough of a specific flower type in my rows, but she's doing the same thing. It's just her rows are going a different way. And then when you play with the third player, those rows would, again, be going a different way. And that is sort of the multiplicative scoring where, 1 in a row is worth 1 point, and then 3, and then 6, and then 10. So you're really scoring a lot of points by having these flowers in your row. So a lot of your points will come from these flowers at the end of the game. You are scoring little points, making little decisions throughout the game, and then at the end of the game, really adding up these flowers, multiplicative scoring. Christina and I have left this on the table all week, and I've just been running it back.
It is so beautiful, and I just keep being drawn to it in the middle of the workday today because we both work. Well, he wasn't working. I was supposed to be working, and I was just like, oh, maybe we could just take a little break. And so we played a whole game in the middle of the workday. It's just like so appealing. The draw for me is really that shared space where you are simultaneously building out your rows and blocking the rows that they are building. So you're constantly making these decisions about getting points right now, blocking them, building your own rows, and sometimes getting to magically do all 3 of those things in the same single placement of a tile. It just feels so satisfying. You can plan out just enough to kind of know what you want, but still, you're going to get interrupted in different ways. It is just, like Kellen was saying, every little component is so beautiful. The tiles are nice. Neelan would love them to roll in his fingers.
You just literally stole the words. I'm looking at the pictures. I'm thinking, imagine these plastic discs. And I'm already...
Yeah, they feel wonderful. They're not heavy, but they're still very nice. The birds are very beautifully illustrated. The flowers are beautifully illustrated. It's vibrant. The colors, even the score trackers, they're these little wooden flowers, like intricate wooden flowers. And that's so satisfying to move that. It's just everything about it is gorgeous. And I wish that there was a solo mode because Kellen's probably not going to play with me anymore.
Well, on that note, though, for player count, how do you guys feel this scales when it goes up to like 3 or 4? Because what you're describing, that like intricate like meshing of people's tiles, that sounds like that would get like...
It doesn't go to 4. It only goes to 3. There is what appears to be playtesting going on for a 4 to 6 player version of the game. On the forum, there is also a different theme for this called A Pet's Life, Seikatsu, A Pet's Life. There is one other type of tile that we didn't even cover. There are koi pond tiles that sort of act as wilds when you place them and then act as wild flowers in endgame scoring. But there are only 4 of those. I think there are a couple of interesting things to cover here, one of which being is that my colorblind self had a huge problem with the pinks and the purples and the oranges in these flower wreaths. I had actually read the whole rule book, didn't realize that there were flowers at all, that they were different. And then as we were playing, I was just like, that's pink, right? That's orange, right? And they are different shapes as well, but they are pretty intricate. And I think you can see the course correction in Seikatsu, A Pet's Life, because the entire background of the chips is like a full splash of color. It is not a little color, it is a lot of color. This feels kind of like a bootleg Knizia game with a better board presence. Is very beautiful. I'm really glad we have this. I have gotten over my color blindness. You play the first game and you're just focused on your rows and you're like, yeah, I got 4 in a row. This is awesome. And then the second game you play, oh no, Christina has 3 in that row. And it's like, should I get my 4th in this row or should I block the out of Christina? And if you know anything about Christina and I, you would know that our games have devolved quite rapidly. I think our scores have gone down.
There has been one consistency though.
What are you saying?
Well, there's been
we said
there's been a
we
winner.
said we wouldn't talk about.
There's been a consistent winner. Yeah, we don't have to talk about that. To answer your question, though, Neelan, which Kellen did not do. We've only played this a bunch of time 2-player. We have not played it 3-player, but I think I would be paralyzed if I added another player.
Well, because that was my impulse based on what you were saying. Like, trying to find the perfect placement when you're considering one other player sounds like that would get
Especially the first couple of games, you really are like, okay, wait, this is my row and that is your row. Like, you have to keep reorienting your brain to make sure you know which rows. So adding a third to that, I think, would be quite challenging.
I think the counterbalance to that is you only have a hand of 2, right? It's not a hand of 5, so your placement options at the very beginning of the game are like, you've got like 5 places to play. Like, you may have nothing that scores points in your first hand, and all you can do is block somewhere.
Yeah, that's true. Your options are always pretty limited, so it's not that paralyzing.
And to me, I applaud that. It keeps it a smidgen more casual than an abstract strategy game of Go, let's say. A big surprise, this is just one I saw on Amazon on sale and just hit the order button and showed up during the pandemic.
How many games have shown up during the pandemic?
Ooh, don't ask me that question.
Thank you, Kellen, for telling us about Seikatsu, and I guess me too. That was Seikatsu. Mark, tell us about Merv.
Merv, the Heart of the Silk Road, is a heavy economic game, I guess. When it comes to Merv, there are a lot of things going on. It is a rather heavy game, as I've mentioned, but as I've sort of noticed with a couple heavy games that I've played recently, it does have a fairly simple rule set, and the heaviness really comes from the decisions you have to make. In fact, this is a game where you're playing 3 years, 4 turns each year, so you'll have a total throughout the entire game of 12 actions you'll be taking. So it's got a little bit of the Lacerda vibe there, where you're only taking a couple actions throughout the entire game. So the crux of Merv, the main action selection aspect of it, which is sort of the heart of the game, is it is a 5x5 board of tiles, which each have a different resource you'll get from selecting them and a different action you can take by selecting them. And each round, you are going to go across one side of this 4-sided board that make up the 5x5 tile grid. And when you select your spot, you can select any tile that is on that row or column that you now are on top of or alongside. And when you select a tile, if the tile has not been claimed by another player, you're going to put your own little house there to claim it, and then you will get the resources of every tile that you have claimed in that column or row. So if I go into a column and there's a tile in that column that has not been claimed that I want to get the resources of and take the action of, I can claim it, and then I can claim every resource of every building I've built prior to that in that column or row. However, the flip side of that is, when you do select the column or row, if you want to take an action or get the resource of a tile that somebody else has claimed, you can do that. Say Neelan is playing against me and he's orange, and I want to take an action that he has previously built a house on. I get the resource from the spot that he's previously claimed, and I get every resource from all the tiles that he's previously claimed. So in that way, you're building off of the infrastructures that other players have built. So it is very attractive in this game to build a bunch of houses or claim a bunch of tiles all in a row or column, thinking, oh, next time I come around, I am going to take one of these tiles, and then I'm going to take all the resources from all the other buildings in that column or row because I've claimed them and they're all the same color. But the flip side of that is, if somebody else can get in front of you and hop on that row, they can just inherit all these buildings you've built and take all of the resources that you have sort of built up together. So after you select a column or a row, you select a spot, you get all the resources of the like color, and then you take the action associated with the tile. So this actions sort of have to do with different tracks that you're trying to travel along the board. So the tracks are a little abstracted in such a way that they're not all just plain old tracks, although a couple of them are tracks. There's a technology track that you can move up by exchange of resources. There is another track which unlocks your ability to perform other tracks well. So that's sort of an interesting aspect where there's sort of like a master track, and going up that track allows you to do other actions better. For example, there's a track where you can acquire cards, and the types of cards and the number of cards you can acquire depend on how far you are up along this sort of this master track. So, but it is a multiple track game. There's another track that you can go to acquire a resource, which is books that help you fulfill contracts, which is, a very Euro thing you can do. But also acquiring books unlocks technologies that give you unique advantages throughout the rest of the game. Really, all that other sort of ancillary stuff is stuff you would expect from a Euro game. Resource acquisition, resource management, contract fulfillment, all that kind of stuff. Where Merv steps up and is unique is in this action selection central aspect of the board. In addition to that, after every circuit around the board, every year, so everybody's taking 4 actions, there is an attack where all sides of the board are attacked. You can have sacrificed your turn to place a soldier to protect the house, or one of the actions you can take is to build walls that will protect the city, and you are rewarded for protecting yourself, but you're also rewarded even more for protecting your opponents. So there is an incentive to protect your opponent's buildings, which is a substantial part of the game. Finally, there is a really interesting turn-to-turn first-player aspect to the game where when you're taking your actions, the player who has moved closest to the end of any segment of the board will be the first player unless players behind them pay to move ahead. So the interesting part to that is, like, if you move ahead on the track, you are set up to take the first action, but anybody behind you gets the first opportunity to pay to jump ahead of you. So it's sort of like do I want to guarantee that I will be going first by taking one of these actions that normally mean I'm going to go last, but I'm going to pay camels, or do I want to bank on nobody else paying the camels and therefore jump ahead? So there's an interesting consideration where it comes to tempo in that regard. As for the game itself, I enjoyed my first play of Merv. It is definitely a game where you start out getting one resource a turn and you're thinking to yourself, like, how am I going to do any of this stuff? But, it soon becomes apparent when everybody's starting to build out these houses and you realize how many resources you get in later turns where the engine sort of explodes, and then you're left with like too many resources. And that's actually a little bit of where I might have a little bit of concern. It felt like whereas the beginning of the game you were like starving for anything, it felt like at the end of the game you were maybe a little too flush. I don't know. It's hard to tell. We've only played, again, one game of it. I will also say that it was satisfying in the respect that everybody at the table who played this game with me all had the same feeling that if we just had one more turn, if we just had 2 more turns, we would have been able to accomplish much more. And I always like a game, especially an engine building game, where it leaves you wanting more. I think it's important for engine building games not to leave you satisfied at the end, because for me, when an engine building game, like at the end of it, you feel like you've done everything you want, I feel very little incentive to go back to it. So Merv, hopefully, if that holds up, is good in that respect.
So, Mark, you mentioned that the 4 tracks associated with the games are basically just variations on track progression. Do they have kind of like a mini game-ish type components to each of them?
Yes, there is like a unique flavor to each of them. Like, okay, there's a resource gathering track, which is sort of like a map mini game where you have to like select which avenue you're going to go along. There is a different feeling.
Okay, they're not just all abstracted tracks, basically.
Right.
Okay, got it. I will say one other thing. I freaking love the way that this game looks. So it is such vibrant colors by our favorite up-and-coming artist, Tool, and he knocks it out of the park when it just comes to interesting, unique color choices.
Yeah, sort of the same like sort of pastel-y palette that he has in a lot of games. But yeah, absolutely very, very vibrant colors, and these walls that you can build to protect the city are actual little like 3-dimensional walls that you can put up. So by the end of the game, once all the walls have been sort of built up, it does make for a nice table presence.
You mentioned, Mark, like Lacerda-like in some aspects.
Yeah.
Because I think I actually have this on an order that has not delivered, right, because there's a lot of interaction, but not necessarily like very mean interaction in when you claim a action space and then want to use someone else's. Weight-wise, relative to Escape Plan, which I bounced off of pretty hard. Like, is this in the ballpark, in the vicinity? Is this its own thing? Like, it's more conventional Euro than Lacerda, probably.
Yes, it feels different than Escape Plan. I think weight-wise, it's probably similar, but it's much different vibe than Escape Plan. It's much less sterile than I felt Escape Plan was. You do have the 12 actions, so that feels very Lacerda-y to me, like very few actions for a game that's going to take a reasonably long time. I think our game was an hour and a half or something like that, 2 hours. So it's all in the like consideration of your actions. But yeah.
Cool.
And that is Merv, the Heart of the Silk Road.
Thank you, Mark, for telling us about Merv.
You got it.
We're all going to have to all get together and play that soon, which leads me into our first topic of discussion today. Our first topic is a very exciting one because it is based around the fact that as of Cinco de Cuatro, all of us will be fully vaccinated, which means that Cinco de Cuatro is the 2 weeks after the second shot. So very, very, very fully vaccinated.
Not one stab, but 2 stabs.
And so the Saturday, the soonest we could possibly get together is that next Saturday. And that is when we are all going to play games together in person for real. So no park outdoor games. This is for real playing games. And so the first game that we're playing is a big fight because, you know, we've been talking about playing games for a year now. We all have things we want to play. We've all been making promises left and right. And now the time has come and, you know, decisions have to be made. So in this session, we are going to fight for the games that we want to play on the 8th of May.
Cinco de Ocho.
I'm going to make it really easy for everyone because I know what the game is.
Okay.
It's a given. It's Eclipse. We're playing Eclipse. Like, this is the...
Second Dawn for the first galaxy?
No, Eclipse, second... I don't know what it is. I think it's Second Dawn for the Galaxy. It might be Second Dawn for the first galaxy for all I know. But it is the second edition of Eclipse, and it's lavish, and it's beautiful and amazing, and it's a fighty space game where you build ships and throw them at each other and chuck a ton of dice, and it's got Euro mechanics laid on top of it, which means it's not just like your Ameritrashy sort of move ships around.
All right.
Twilight Imperium style. It has a real solid design core at the basis of its dice chucking. So that's how you know it's good. No, Eclipse, I've been wanting to play this with you guys since I played the very first edition of this, and now this second edition has just been sitting on my floor, this lavish, beautiful Kickstarter production, going to waste.
Every time you look at it, do you say, oh, I wish I was playing this with Mark and Neelan, with Mark and Kellen and Christina?
That's exactly it. I just sort of sit there like eyeing the box and just imagining. Sometimes I take the moves as if it was you taking a turn, Christina or Kellen taking a turn.
What would Kellen do?
Kellen's just grumbling the whole time. He doesn't take a lot of turns. He's like, oh my god, all these Euro in my...
Do you like this better than Twilight Imperium?
I do. Yeah, I definitely do. I mean, to be fair, like, I've only played the first edition of Eclipse once, and I've also only played Twilight Imperium once, so, like, you know, it takes a grain of salt, but I liked it a lot more than Twilight Imperium. There's one specific, like, thing in Eclipse that I love, which is that you're kind of designing your ships, you're building the blueprints for them, so your smallest ship is going to be slightly different from Mark's smallest ship. So there's, like, this element of, like, do I just go missile heavy or do I go laser heavy or armor heavy? And it's just so cool.
Yeah, it's interesting. I do think that the pandemic probably didn't help the delivery of this second edition Kickstarter, because when Eclipse first edition was out there, it was all the rage. Like, I feel like it was a game that you could not get away from. And since the second edition has come out, I haven't heard basically anything.
I mean, I can't imagine it's a game that just does well at 2-player. Like, it's a big, lavish sort of event game, you know? So I can imagine that there's a ton of people just sitting on their Kickstarter copies waiting to, like, have the chance to play it.
And it delivered just as the pandemic was, like...
Yeah, pretty much. Right around April. Yeah.
Well, this is going to be a tough segment because that sounds amazing. But what about this? Because I have something that none of you will be able to say no to. You will not be able to say no. So I'm talking about the Doctor. Not only am I talking about the Doctor, but I'm talking about the Doctor plus Legacy. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh. I do know what you're talking about.
I am talking about My City by Dr. Rainer Knizia. My City is a legacy game in which you are building your city. It's a competitive legacy game. I did not read too much about this because I am so spoiler averse. I was like terrified of going on the internet because I didn't want to see, I didn't want to Google anything and have any people would, spoil. Anyways, so I did read the rule book in full, not the secret rule book, the new rule books that you reveal every chapter, but I did read the normal rule book. So I know the rules, but I don't want to explain them. So just know that it's Reiner Knizia. It is, you're building your own city. There's fun scoring, plus this, minus this. You can go in the negative points. Not exactly, but kind of. It's amazing. It's going to be so much fun. And one thing I forgot, and Neelan, you're going to love this. Are you ready?
Uh-huh.
One word. Polyominoes.
Ooh, you know how much I love polyominoes?
Yeah?
I'm excited for that. No, genuinely, I've been itching to play this, since it was announced. And again, a casualty of the pandemic. It arrived sort of as we were going into it.
All right, but what if we took that legacy game, stripped out the Doctor?
What?
Doctor was 2020. We're past that. We're looking ahead. We always look ahead. And we added negotiation and politics and played The King's Dilemma. This is a game that I want to play with you guys. We're all families. We're all arguing. We're all politicking. That sounds beautiful. And I'm looking at the game. I'm looking at the BGG page, and each family has a motto. So we could all have mottos. Ooh. Work is life. Life is to be enjoyed. Hit hard. We can take it. That sounds like fun. Never break a deal. Feel our sting.
You know what's funny about this one, and that it gives you kind of an extra point, I think, is that we had a few dates planned to start this right before the pandemic, and things kept coming up, and then the pandemic happened.
Let's be clear about the things that came up, because the one who's saying, "Oh, we should play the King's Dilemma," is the thing that came up.
Well, I guess in Mark's defense, though, it's just as well we didn't start it, really.
That's true.
See, I was
Good job,
prescient.
Mark.
That's right.
Yeah, God, I need to play this. The way that people were raving about it is madness to me, and it kind of, we were early on it, and we didn't get around to it.
I think we should crack open a bottle of wine and just start yelling at each other and making deals and just get crazy.
Okay, you know what? I think I'm just going to say we can start the day with My City, and we can end the day with The King's Dilemma.
Perfect.
And then who knows what'll be in the middle. I guess these two have to fight it out.
Okay. Let's just be clear here that Neelan is suggesting a 7-hour game. Okay.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that part. But it's the best 7 hours you've ever had.
Suggesting a 7-hour game. Christina and Mark are suggesting campaign games that don't end. Okay, you guys are dumb. Let me just say that. The first game that we should play is something that is succinct, that we can bookend. What would be better than a new area control Meeples on a map game? This is Ruination, and this is a new one from Colossal Games. Look at this artwork, okay?
Isn't it Ruination? Like ruins?
Ruin?
Ruination,
that's what I said.
All right, it's okay.
Did I not say Ruination?
Well, you keep saying Ruination.
Ruination.
Like.
Okay. Well,
okay.
I don't know. I haven't played it yet. Okay.
Like kangaroo. Like it's a nation of kangaroos.
Okay.
That's how you're saying.
This is a derail. This is a classic Christina tactic. Ruination. Ruination is a area control game that is over in less than 2 hours. Okay. I love that. First of all, you've got some cool little minis. You've got a very interesting action selection in the game, okay? There are 3 types of actions, those being move, recruit, and scavenge, with scavenge sort of being to exploit the land in sort of a Euro way. But those are face-up decks that have special benefits with each one of them. And if Mark takes move, he gets that cool benefit, and then another move card comes out. But the other 2 stay there, and the next player is going to be selecting from those 3 versions of move, recruit, and scavenge. So I like Colossal Games. I like some of the things they've done. The artwork here, there's a lot of card powers, combos. It's a Euro. It's a Meeples on a map game. It's over in 2 hours. Okay. Because you dummies think that we're going to be here all night. It's Cinco de Ocho is 1 day long.
Okay, first of all, why do you want to get rid of us so quickly? Second of all, and we haven't seen each other for a year.
Yeah.
So
if we're spending less than 8 hours, I'm going to be very disappointed.
But, okay, Nealon is suggesting a game, proven track record. Eclipse 2nd edition, first one, much loved. Christina.
What about the lasers?
Christina.
What about the lasers, Mark?
That's been fixed. Christina, The Doctor. I mean, classic, perfect, no complaints. Me, much lauded. Game of 2019, King's Dilemma. You're bringing a game that we have no idea about. So this is what
I bring the heat. What are you talking about?
We're going to play this game, and we're going to be like, great, this is our first game, and it sucks.
Yeah, I ruined the memory.
Yeah.
I preferred when we didn't play games together.
Yeah. That ends the...
It sounds good. It does sound really interesting, and it sounds like a game I definitely am interested in playing, but it's not the first game I want to play.
I'm actually just impressed that this entirely passed me by. This actually does look pretty cool, I think.
Yeah, what do you mean you're impressed it passed you by? I'm the one who supplies this stuff.
The answer to your proposal here, Kellen, is in the designer's name. You know what his name is? Travis R. Chance. And you're taking a chance with our first game.
Okay. I've been convinced.
Wait, you've been convinced we're playing our 3 games?
This is the thing. Nealon, right, has a sunk cost fallacy, okay? Because he's been looking at that for over a year.
Exactly.
So.
I have a year of like hopes and dreams riding on this being good.
I don't know that we're going to get to a consensus here on what's
play all 4.
Well, Mark and I have agreed, so.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we're gonna start 2 campaign games the same day?
Yeah.
For
with
sure.
Wine?
Well, the wine is later with King's Dilemma.
Yeah.
My City is... We'll have tea with My City.
Perfect. This is an all-day thing. You're the one who said as soon as we got vaccinated, we'd be doing BarageCon.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
So, so we're doing all 4. 7.
Okay.
It's decided.
All 4. Good decision.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that went better than I expected. Our next topic, which is not the question you've all been waiting for, but that'll come later still. Our next question is, what is a board game that you appreciate the design of but hate to play? Who wants to kick us off?
I am happy to kick us off. I think I have mentioned this before. This is everyone's darling favorite auction game. Oh my God. I love Neuhamat. I love the Estates. I do not love the Estates. I don't like playing it. I don't like playing it because it is painful. It is too painful. I tap out. I have a low pain tolerance. The Estates is a very unique, a game I admire tremendously for how cutthroat, for how brutal it is, for how you can win by hardly scoring any points as long as everyone else does worse than you. There are many cool design wrinkles in the Estates, both from the closed economy of the game to how only 2 of the 3 streets even score. And so your entire infrastructure that you're building can be taken from you. There are so many things I appreciate about the Estates. The only thing they forgot was to make it fun to play. And that is why I do not like the Estates.
So wrong. Could not be more wrong, Kellen. Estates is...
I also do not like playing with Mark because he is fantastic at the Estates.
I think maybe that's the true that we just learned. It's not actually the Estates. It's that he's only ever played with Mark.
But I do think the Estates it does exist. Normally, if I don't like playing something, I will say it's not good, which is not true. That's my subjective opinion. But the Estates does sit in a place where I read the rule book. I'm smiling the whole time. I'm like, well, I'm not happy to be reading the rule book, but I'm happy at the mechanisms. It exists in this weird niche where I feel like how mean it is, how cutthroat it is, all the cool wrinkles I'm there for. And then when I show up to play the game, I somehow always have a miserable time. And I don't know how to articulate it otherwise.
I think it's very close to tipping that way for me. I love the Estates. I think it's excellent, but like I kind of almost love it because it's painful, but I get where you're coming from. I think it's so close to being just not enough reward versus the pain that I would probably agree with you, but I think it gets the balance right for my taste at least. But on that vein though, like a game that I do genuinely find painful to play is something like a Captain Sonar or a Space Cadets, where I love the idea so much of asymmetric members of a team where everyone has a distinct role and it's a team versus team game. I genuinely like team versus team games a lot, and especially in the context of something like Captain Sonar where, okay, I am the captain, I am the sonar operator, I am the helmsman, and everyone has a very distinct, specific role, but my God, playing Captain Sonar makes me want to like tear my hair out in just like agony that I'm like messing something up constantly all the time. It's the game I tell myself that I want to play, but anytime I'm doing it, I'm just like,
Do not recruit Neelan for your
feel
team at Captain Sonar. You know, the designers of that game were smart. They made the role, I think it's first mate, where all they're doing is readying up engines, readying up powers. And you'd think that Neelan could handle sort of just checking those boxes. But no, do not put him on your Captain Sonar team.
No, I'm with you, Neelan. I almost get tremors when I think of this game. I just have, oh gosh, I never want to think about it again. I couldn't handle it. But I similarly, when I heard it described, I was like, oh yeah, this sounds it sounds amazing. This sounds like it'll be so much fun, and I just can't handle it.
And it's the sort of game that when I think about like my crazy ambitions in amateur designer land, it's the sort of game I wish I had invented. Like I think it's such a cool idea for a game. I love everything about it conceptually, except playing it.
Speaking of games that conceptually I wanted to like, but fell flat for me. This game was out of print a couple of years ago, and I was seeking out so desperately, and I just envisioned these like great game nights where like my friends would like dress up in Sherlock Holmes regalia, and we would play Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective and figure out a case and solve a mystery, and it'd be this great thing. And the times I played it 2-player, which in retrospect is definitely the best player count, or low player counts. I would never want to play this with the group of people I envisioned playing it with. But in the end, it just felt like a game where you're just reading things to each other and then like having to kind of figure out where the clues are and stuff. And it just felt so plodding. You can pass things along to each other and read it yourself and then pass that thing to the other player. But then there's no real like interactivity except when you're discussing the clues. I just wanted like almost what escape rooms have become, where the escape room games are quick and small and you pass things around and it's sort of like fast to play. Sherlock Holmes, it just felt so, again, plodding, just this reading. I'm going to read you a paragraph and then you're going to read me a paragraph, and it just wasn't what I was hoping it would be. But I know that a lot of people love it and it's a favorite and it got reprinted for a reason, but just it does not work. I wanted it to work so badly, but just does not work for me.
It's perfect if you are the kind of person that is reading a book and sees a bunch of footnotes like A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then goes, by golly, I'm excited to read those footnotes.
For some reason, it sounds like you're making fun of Neelan, but I don't think you actually are.
I mean, on some level you are, because I'm exactly that person, so...
Have you played this, Neelan? Have you played Sherlock?
I have actually. I actually agree with you. Like, it's kind of funny because I love murder mysteries, and I love, like we've spoken about like choose your own adventures in game books, and even the idea of this is like so close to that. But I've never found it that engaging, and I don't know if that's because, like you said, I don't think it really works in a multiplayer sense. Like, it feels like maybe something I would enjoy if I did it solo or just with one other player, but I don't know that it struck me as something I wanted. And also, it doesn't help that like Watson and Holmes is almost like the version of this that I do want to play, so it just doesn't compare favorably.
All right. Well,
I have a feeling, but don't say it if my feeling is correct.
Okay. Well, it probably is, because this is a game that Kellen loves and he wants me to love. And I can even appreciate so many things about it. I appreciate the unique player powers. I love that in most games. And Neelan already knows too. Yeah. He's smiling and nodding. I typically love games that encourage like alliances. I typically love games that are super fighty and unbalanced in terms of the player powers. I do not love this game. This is Cosmic Encounter. I think that there are so many things that make it a game I should really, really love. And for whatever reason, I just have had every game has been a bad experience. It has just never fired for me. And it's tough. I think the hard thing about this question is that it's really hard to pinpoint why that is, because you know that it's good. You understand that it's good. And it's like, why can't I like this? You know?
No heart. None of you guys get Cosmic is the scary thing. Maybe that's the first game we should play. Why did we even start with that first question?
Real start with a downer. I'm actually with Christine on this. I've only played it a couple times, and both of them have been lackluster. But like she said, it's another game where it feels like all the pieces add up to a game that I would love, but in the blending of it or in the execution, something has failed me. But it's still a game that I am eager to play again just because I know what it is to other people and what it, I guess, potentially could be.
But you keep trying, and it's just never... I feel like I've tried so many times. It used to be Kellen's number one, so I was really trying to like it, but...
I will say this about Cosmic, because I still have my copy of Cosmic, and I plan on keeping it. Like, it's a game that for me is hit and miss, and not even strictly by player group. I've had games with the same group that have just been complete duds, and games with like some of the best games of any game I've ever played. And I feel like if you hit that high enough times in quick succession, I get it. Like it's such a weird smorgasbord of like the players and the powers all in one pool, and that combination has to work just right for it to like really shine, in my opinion.
So fascinating. That game. That will bring us to our next and final question. And this is what you've all been waiting for. What is something that you have never heard on the Board Game Barrage podcast? I will tell you. It is...
Nealon singing?
Well, that's going to be a weekly segment. You've never heard the tanks complimenting each other. We really like to be mean to each other, and obviously it's in a very friendly spirit, but it's based in this competitiveness. It's why we have so much fun playing games with each other. But today we are going to break down that barrier, and we're going to be nice to each other. So I want you all to fill in the blanks of this sentence. I like playing board games with blank tank because blank.
This feels like when a teacher catches two kids fighting with each other. He says, "You will not leave until you compliment Timmy, and Timmy, you compliment Sarah." Timmy,
It does.
I like Sarah because...
Well, Mark, why don't you start?
Oh, boy. All right. Well, I guess Callan dresses well.
The only rule is no sarcasm, Mark.
Okay, all right. I actually came up with two reasons for each person. One reason that I like playing against them, and one reason I like playing with them. Sort of a co-op and competitive version of
like
each.
it.
All right. So Christina, the reason I like playing against Christina is I think she is probably the best first game player that I play against. Like when we play a game for the first time, I really have come to understand that I have to keep an eye on Christina because like when we're figuring out a game, for me, she just has a knack to win the game, but also win the game in like a sneaky way. Before you know it, you look up and Christina has like an insurmountable lead. And so it's like, I love that. I love having to keep her in check or keep an eye on her when we're figuring out a game. She has a way to like figure out, I don't know if she's figuring out loopholes or if she's just grokking the game quicker than the rest of us, but like first plays, and you know what's the most frustrating part is it's first plays of games that I'm looking forward to. A lot of times I'm looking forward to playing this game, like a big, especially like a troops on the map game, and like I really want to win this game. I really want to win this. This is the first time playing it. We're all on a level playing field, and Christina ends up winning it. And so that's what I love for the competitive version of it. I guess I'll go competitive with everybody. Competitive Nealon. The reason I like playing against Nealon is sort of like the opposite of Christina. Like
I'm just bad at first place.
No, Nealon is like calculating. And what I worry about playing against Nealon is like the second game and the third game, because I feel like a lot of first games with Nealon, he is willing to explore strategies and like try to like understand the game. And so I think a lot of times when I've played the first game against Nealon, I feel like he's like tinkering in that first game and like pulling levers and twisting dials, but then when you play a game the second time and the third time, that's when I dread playing Nealon, because I feel like he's going to have a better understanding and know how the game is going to go and the best way to play it, and like that's not something I excel at. So that's a reason I like playing against Nealon further games, because I know I'm going to be pushed in that way. When it comes to Callan in competitive games, the reason I love playing against him is because I know I can stab him, and I know he's going to come at stabbing me. And I know that it's not only an openness with like being attacky, but like it's also going to hurt. Like when he attacks me or when I attack him, it's not a complete like, oh, I accept it. We know we have this bond and it's going to be fine. There's pain there. There's like a vulnerability there that I feel like when I'm going at Callan, when he's going at me, that like heightens the experience. There's like a very, like there's like a blood pact there. There's some like sort of like heightened level. Like I feel like there's like something elevated, which I love. It raises the stakes of the games we play against each other. And I love that. I love that amplification. All right, one more time around. The cooperative reason, the reason I love playing with all of you. Christina, when she's a teammate, she's all out. Reckless. She's going to go hard. She's not going to care about the odds. She's going to go in. And I love that. Like, we come up with a crazy strategy. Whatever it takes, there are no bad ideas. We're just going to go at it, and it's going to be, like, crazy. And anything is possible. And I just love that. It's like full, blind, let's do it. The thing I love about playing cooperatively with Nealon, or the friendly aspect, is that Nealon is, like, always down to joke. Like, I don't think Nealon will ever be upset or take offense at like a joke or a jab or anything like that. He's like, in some ways, like, I feel like Nealon is like some ways the most sensitive of us, the most like kind of the group, but also in other ways, I think he's like the most thick-skinned. Like, I feel like he's the guy who, like, whenever I want diffusal of the area or like a joke, I always know a joke going to Nealon is going to be fine. It's going to be met with a joke. It's just a great feeling at the table. And then with Kellen, whenever I have teamed up with Kellen in a game, I feel like it's those like comic books where like Joker joins Batman for something. There's some weird thing that happened and they're joining forces and it's like no holds barred. Now it's going to be like whatever you can dream up, any sort of like aggressiveness. We've got two attackers going on and it feels like unfair when we're on the same team to me. Like, it feels like we're both going to be like aggressive and like figuring out ways to take shots against a common foe, and it's just like a great feeling. I love it. So those are my...
Wow.
That's a
I
great
feel like
start.
we're all speechless because we're not used to this and we don't know what to say. Thank you, Mark.
If I can follow up, because I actually want to say that my thing for Mark is very reciprocal of the exact thing you said on the first part of the competitive side, because I think the thing I always love about playing a game with you, Mark, is regardless of what company we're in, whether we're in mixed company or people that don't know us that well, or at a game night where, you know, we have a dynamic that isn't necessarily shared by everyone at the table, there is this undercurrent of like jabs, you know, and like jokes. Like sometimes it's just kind of like a snarky little thing that is just kind of said to each other, and there's like no one else like laughing or no one else quite getting it, but we're just going at each other. Whether it's like a minor little competitive spike, we're always like a little bit at each other's throats in a game, but it's this like shared competition that just feels like this like connection between you and I. It was just like this almost like very brotherly kind of thing, which is like, I'm going to say a thing, I'm going to sort of poke this a little bit, and I love when I glance up and I just see a little Mark smile or hear a little Mark snicker at like something. It's my favorite thing.
Sorry, just that reminds me of anytime we're at a board game convention and playing with like demoers or people that don't know us, and like all of a sudden like Mark has turned it into a show.
Yes.
And like the only one who doesn't know it's a show is the person demoing the game for us.
With Christina, I think the easiest thing is the thing that most comes readily to mind when I think about playing a game is like your ability just to like find the fun in a situation and like put yourself out there and just be like fun and funny and engaged and like manic in a good way, in a way that like the way that you will fully commit to like a game, any game, and especially in the context of like party games, like something like a Time's Up. I say this to like anyone, that if you're a listener to this podcast and you're a fan of Christina on the show, it will be your absolute privilege to one day play Time's Up with her. To see her like jump up and like her eyes go wild with like the crazy energy that she brings to the game. It's so like intense in the best way, because you know that you're so spirited and care about it, but like it's all with this edge of just like having the best possible time and making it fun for everyone around you. Yeah, and I love that. For Kellen, I feel like we have a lot of very specific like offline discussions. Like I think Kellen is probably the person I sort of talk to the most outside of the context of the podcast, just whether it's like about video games, you know, we both work in the industry, whether it's about books or it's about films, politics, anything that's like happening in the world. And I feel like that dynamic travels with us whenever we play a game. And there are these shared conversations that sort of come up in the context of playing a board game that I have with Kellen that I don't have with like pretty much anyone else. And that could be like either talking about or dissecting something in the game to the extent that is like maybe even annoying, I suspect, sometimes to people around us when we're talking about an aspect of the design or the way that this intersects with something we saw in the industry or on Twitter. The fabric of like how we're able to talk openly and readily with each other and even bring that to the context of a board game is something that I think is just pretty special and unique to you.
I just want to vouch for that because this is something that I've witnessed a number of times, unsurprisingly, firsthand. Like, as we're playing a game, especially I notice this, especially when it's the first time playing a game, we're analyzing a game and trying to figure out what it's all about. The way you guys connect on it and see the ramifications and just talk about what's going on. I've always thought that was amazing.
Yeah, like there's a level deeper.
Yeah, right, exactly.
And one of the things that might not be very apparent just if you've just listened to the podcast or seen us argue on Discord is that Kellen and I have a lot more in common than you'd expect. And I think that it comes across in like different ways of thinking about things. I don't think we necessarily approach the way we think about things the same as each other, but there's almost like a synergy to the way that we connect on a topic in terms of the way that we approach it differently. And I think that that works very well for our dynamic and the way that we talk about everything practically.
Okay, I'll go next.
This is uncomfortable.
It's really
I do
hard.
feel uncomfortable.
It's really uncomfortable. I like, obviously nobody can see this, but I've been like burying my face in my hands because it's just like, I can't. Okay, I will go next. I'm going to start with Mark. We are always teammates. We're the Alliance.
Breakbeak forever.
That's right. What I love about playing games with Mark is, number one, the competitiveness. That is just, it does not matter who he's playing against. It doesn't matter what the circumstances are. It doesn't matter what the game is. Mark wants to win. He will win at any cost. And I love that because we all are very competitive with each other, which makes our group really fun to play games with. But I think especially with Mark, there's just like this devotion to the game. There's this devotion to winning that just makes it so exciting. It makes the stakes so high. You know how much he cares. It's just so much fun to be a part of. But at the same time, with that harsh competitiveness, Mark is such a positive person. And I think that bleeds into his gameplay as well. He has like a very positive outlook on life. And I think it's just paired with that competitiveness, it just creates such a wonderful experience because even though he's like, he will do anything to win, when he doesn't win, like, yes, he's upset, but he's also just like, well, that was amazing. Like, let's go do it again. You know, it's like, there's never any downside with Mark. It's always wonderful. So Mark's amazing. We all know that. Next, we'll go to Neelan. So what I love most about playing board games with Neelan is that Neelan has such a genuine and sincere appreciation for game design and artwork and like the art of the game. And I think that it just like bubbles out of him. Like there's this joy that comes out and it's just like completely contagious where like if Neelan is excited about a game or a part of a game, you can just like see it in his eyes and in his words as he's like trying to talk about it. He's just like, it's just this tangible joy and it really is just like infects everybody around him. And again, it's just like a complete delight. It's wonderful to witness and be a part of. And Neelan is amazing, and we all know that. And then I think my favorite thing about playing games with Kellen is, well, one, we always gang up on Kellen, you know? Nobody wants Kellen to win. It's like Kellen is enemy number one for all of us. Like, I was actually going to say one of my favorite things about Mark is how much he wants Kellen to lose as much as he wants to win. And I feel the same way. So a lot of times it's just a good partnership there. Anyways, so Kellen is such a good sport with us all ganging up on him. And he almost kind of like, he just like takes it. It just like invigorates him. And he's just like, yeah, bring it on. The other thing is that a lot of times when we're talking about our favorite games, we talk about these high highs. We talk about these explosive moments. And I think the way that Kellen plays games is not always to win. A lot of times the way Kellen plays games is to create the best experience for everyone involved. And so Kellen will sometimes slowly build up to this moment, this explosive moment in a game. And then when he makes it happen, when this moment explodes, it's like the whole table erupts and we're all just like dying of anger or laughter or both or whatever it is. And it really is those moments that make our games so memorable. And I think a lot of the times those are coming from like Kellen devised plans.
Kellen's card flip at the end of Outpost 31 at the first BarageCon is like one of my greatest board gaming moments ever. I'll never forget.
Absolutely.
Wow. Tough act to follow. The rule, no sarcasm, very hard for me. Like, I'm physically uncomfortable right now, which is a a testament because I'm not often uncomfortable. I think that we started Board Game Barrage because we all love each other a lot. I think Mark, just on a human level, Mark, I think is the most reliable person I've ever met. If I need to do something practical in Los Angeles, I literally will just ask Mark. It's like, okay, I need to move, I need to get boxes, I don't know what's going on. And there's this practical level of like, why are you focusing on that thing, Kellen? And I will spin out as a human being. And Mark has some center core that I don't understand and I can't understand. Neelan and I talk all the time, and I think that over the past 5 years, he has softened my perspectives on many things in life, including my heart. And a lot of times I will lob grenades at him in Discord, and then we'll spend 4 days unpacking it together and figuring out what the true is. And I've always appreciated that about our relationship. Christina is the love of my life. We have been together since high school. On the board game front specifically, what I love about playing games with Neelan is that he is as competitive as us. He is willing to stab like the rest of us. Like, we're all really conniving stabbers, but Neelan is somehow like bashful about it. You know, it's like he'll do the stab, he'll betray you in diplomacy, and then he'll kind of go like, sorry, you know, and like, but he'll physically look that way. Like, you'll see it in his cheeks and on his face. And I don't know how that exists in him, because there are those people who have that, but then they don't attack. And they don't do it. And so Neelan commits to doing it because he's playing with us. But then somehow it's this like dichotomy, and it's fascinating to watch and very charming. Like, I don't know the word for it. It's great. Playing games with Mark, I think, is the sort of Batman to my Joker. I think that there's still 10% of me that is convinced that in all economic games he is cheating, that he is pulling money out, that he has printed fake money before the game starts. I swear to God, if it's an economic game, if there's money in it, 3 rounds into the game, I will start back calculating how much money it's possible for a player to have, and Mark will have more money than what I believe is theoretically possible in the game. This leads to, if I have a money question in real life, I literally go, I need to ask Mark about this. And I don't get it. And every time it happens, it's like this moment where I'm like, oh no, Mark has most of the money. And then one turn later, oh no, he has all the money. And the game is over. I don't get it. And I love watching it. And I will continue to love watching it. Christina, the best thing about playing games with Christina, and I will not mince words and don't misunderstand, this is a positive. There are those players who get so emotional and so twisted up that they flip the table and leave, or they start screaming and the game is over, right? Like, you've betrayed, it's over. Christina has all of that emotion. It's all there. She is standing and huffing and puffing and moving around the table and looking at you like you're going to die or she's going to kill you after the game, but she channels it back into the game. So I've never seen a board game player who gets as emotional as she does, and then that doesn't erupt in the table literally flipping. And it doesn't permeate afterwards. That's sort of like, there's that couple thing where it's always like, oh, you know, the angry spouse didn't like what you did and then iced you. Like, no, the game is the game. And she will ramp up with the game more than anyone I have ever seen and contain it within the board game itself, which is that shared space. And it is an outlet for us as a couple in a weird way. And I think it's amazing. And she smiles more than any of us. I think probably, you know, you'd want to play a game with Christina over us, I would say. That would be my vote. That is all the positivity I can spare
that you'll ever hear from Kellen. That's it. And now you know why this is a never before done segment on Board Game Barrage, because we're all very uncomfortable now, but we did it. And now you know that we are actually friends and we love each other. I don't even know.
Where do we go from here?
Yeah, let's.
I don't even know what to say. Neelan, I had a lot of I just kept thinking of quirky things, which obviously we love how quirky you are, but it wasn't I just have so many. I was writing these things down. I have I love playing board games with Neelan because he says pause. Which is not even a quirk. It's just the way you talk. So I'm sorry that came to my head. Another one I have is I love playing board games with Neelan because he is a turn turtle, so it makes me less of a turn turtle. It takes the attention off me. I like playing board games with Neelan because he has a very broad range of sound effects when he's trying to make a decision, which is really nice.
I'm not sure what to make about it. I don't think I'm aware I'm doing them, so that's news to me.
Yeah, that's true, right, guys?
Yes. Yeah, you're bum bum bum.
Okay.
I can't remember any specific, but I know they're there. I can hear them. I just can't.
Now that you say it,
That's so
I
funny.
get it. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, that is going to do it for the episode today. Thank you for listening. And I'll just throw out that URL one more time, boardgamebarrage.com/vote, if you'd like to vote for us for the Golden Geek Award. Thank you again for everyone who nominated us. Thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for sticking around through the painful sincerity of that last segment. And you can find us online at boardgamebarrage.com. You can email us, boardgamebarrage@gmail.com.
Yep.
On Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all of those places. Thank you to Heart Society Music for our intro and outro song, What's on Your Mind, Kid? From their album, Wake the Queens.
Goodbye.
Is that everything?
Bye.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Goodbye. Good night.
The hardest thing about making a board game podcast is
Timing.
marketing.
Neelan is going to tell us about... wait, hang on. Can I hear Jekyll and Hyde?
You know what? I want to look it up really quick. It might be
think it's
Jekyll's
Jekyll
versus
Hyde.
I think that is
Verse or versus?
Jekyll versus Hyde.
Jekyll versus Hyde.
Yeah.
When would it be verse?
It's never verse.
It's never
verse.
verse.
never.
It's always verse.
Yeah, I think I just stupidly pronounced.
Oh, sorry,
VS that
Neelan.
way.
I had that tone with Kellen, not with you. I
Oh,
didn't know
no.
you made the mistake.
I was entirely reacting to Calvin. When would it be verse, you idiot?
No, I thought we discovered another South Africanism. I was excited.
I think that's a Neelandism, actually.
Hey, Mark, did you know that you could eat 3 Oreos or 2 chicken breasts and it's the same calories? Or a New York strip steak and all those things as same calories?
Wait, 3 Oreos, 2 chicken
3
breasts.
Oreos, 2 chicken breasts, or a New York strip steak.
That's crazy. You know how many goldfish are in a serving? I read this once and it never left my head. How many would you say?
I would guess like 15.
All right. It's 55.
55?
I believe that's right.
Wait, real goldfish?
Yeah, real goldfish. No, goldfish crackers.
I mean, I'd be fine with just one more or whatever. It's totally fine.
You want to skip Why Do We Love Each Other?
Well, I didn't like that question to begin
Kellen
with.
wants to skip Why Do We Love Each Other. Can we
Kellen couldn't
keep
come
that
up with a reason
for the record?
for any of us.
Sorry, what'd you say, Neelan?
Kellen couldn't come up with a good reason for any of us.
My goddamn question, you conspiring.
Okay, we're not skipping that. That'll be last. So the thing I'm going to say is...